All right, welcome everybody. This is LAMPBITIOUS, and my name is Patrick Doc Francis, and we're going live today. Unscheduled podcast, but this is a very important podcast that we want to bring to your attention. So I'm going to bring into the room, and we're going to introduce everybody. So my co-founder, Mr. Lloyd Lindley, how's
What's
it
going
going
on,
there?
man? I'm doing fine. I'm grateful to be here and excited about the conversation we're about to have today.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to introduce a couple of folks. These are two people that are very involved with the community and up to date on current events. So the first person I'm going to introduce is Shalonda Shazi Turner. Let me make sure I take your microphones off mute as well. So Shalonda is a chemical engineer and she has a Bachelor of Science degree from Bucknell University. When she's not working as a project engineer, she has a blog. It's called Shazi's World, and it's shazisworld.com is how you can find her. And she'll go over that with you a little bit later. So her name is Shalonda. That's what I call her, but also known as Shazi. She is a liberal, and she's a Democrat. Spends her time promoting social justice and reform, right? Is that correct?
Yep, social justice reform. Yeah.
All right. And so on the other side of the spectrum, we have Mr. Spencer Barfuss. Mr. Spencer Barfuss is a conservative. He's a conservative Christian. He is from Houston, Texas. Hold on, I just lost it right here. Hold on 1 second. He's from Houston, Texas. Graduated from Texas A&M University. Uh,
Oh,
he
good.
spent there you go, alumni.
I'm A&M.
Right.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Gig'em.
Yeah, so he spent the last 15 years as a physical education teacher and recently transitioned into working into as an instructional technology coach um, at a Title I public school in the Houston area. And in his spare time, he spends time with his lovely wife and 4 kids, exercising. That's something that we do here at LAMP and Shazi. And exercising, and he's seeking the truth. So with that being said, we want to jump into it as far as the truth and there's different perspectives and different points of views that we want to talk about. So I want to start out with Shalonda, Miss Shazi. The first question I want to ask you is about BLM, Black Lives Matter, the movement. I want you to give me your perspective on that. As far as BLM started about approximately the movement started approximately 6 years ago. Recently, it's been like a revolutionary type movement now. Tell me your thoughts on that. Is something that you feel is very beneficial, and just tell me your insight on that.
All right. Well, hello everyone. Just like to also apologize in advance that I have two cats that get kind of rowdy. One's meowing around right now, so hopefully you can hear me over her. um, but yeah, so I think the Black Lives Matter movement started. It was around Trayvon Martin's time, and I know that was one of the biggest murders for me that triggered me into action and just like pure anger and being mad about everything that's going on in the world. So I actually think it's a good thing. It took a while for some people to understand what was really trying to be told with the Black Lives Matter. You know, we went through the whole opposition of you're saying only Black lives matter and no other lives matter, and why is it only just focusing on Black people versus others? So I think we finally come around to 6 years later where it's understood now that that's not the point of being that it only Black lives that matter. It's the fact that right now we feel that our lives are being targeted higher than others, and and so I guess the essence is members of the Black Lives Matter movement actually really believe all lives matter. We just want to be included in all lives matter. And for years, basically since 1619, when we came over as slaves, we haven't really been included in that discussion. Now, that's the generalization. That doesn't mean every individual person in the United States is walking around hating Black people, but we've had systems in place to keep us down. And that is why, beyond just being murdered, it's like where we live, our economic ability to grow. A lot of people will look at me as like, well, look at you. You're an African-American female who's a chemical engineer. You're doing pretty well. But I'm like, if you look at my industry in whole, like there's not very many of me. There's not very many women, period. And there's definitely not that many African American women. So I'm like an outlier. And that doesn't mean I can't see the rest of my community still struggling to be able to get these same opportunities and to get into this type of thing. So I think it helps. I just think there needs to be open conversation on what it means, because I think some people can get confused. And I don't think it helps to go back and forth on arguing what it means. Just trying to be able to have open dialogues to discuss like Black Lives Matter, because it really and truly does not mean we only care about Black lives and no other lives matter. It really means that we want to be included in the all lives matter.
Right. So I got you. So it's more like this movement is something that you feel is very beneficial, and that when people come back and say all lives matter right after you say Black Lives Matter, for some reason they feel slighted. Like, are you kind of saying that our life doesn't matter either? Correct?
Yeah, that's a lot of the rhetoric I get, and it is very frustrating as an African American person to hear that for multiple reasons. One, because this occurs across the board for any type of issue, and this type of rebuttal only comes up during Black Lives Matter. For instance, during October, it's Breast Cancer Month, and there's a big focus on breast cancer awareness. But nobody's running around saying, oh, what about ovarian cancer or whatever during that time period? Like, the focus is on breast cancer. That doesn't mean ovarian cancer isn't just as bad or isn't just as important to be aware about. The time at this moment, we are focusing on breast cancer.
Right.
The other problem I really have with the All Lives Matter is it only comes up when people say Black Lives Matter. I feel like if it was truly a believed in statement, I should see that all the time. Any type of social injustice comes up, regardless of if it's against a white person or a Black person. I mean, we've got immigrant children in jail cells dying by ICE, and I don't see a single All Lives Matter post about that ever. It only comes up when we say Black Lives Matter. So to me, it seems like it's just an automatic rebuttal instead of actually trying to understand what we're saying, because I never see it any other time.
Gotcha.
And so that's my spiel.
I got a quick question too. So Chassie, so I guess with the happenings of George Floyd, I think it brought everything to the forefront. And it wasn't so much Black Lives Matter, but it was like social injustice. Like, everybody slowly saw this man die in front of the world. And so I think Black Lives Matter is more of like a movement now. It's like we can put something behind, like everybody wants to put something behind something, just like politics. Like, I want to put everything I believe behind this candidate, all the trust, everything. And so I think that's what's making it grow. Like you said, Black Lives Matter has been around, but when I see protests in Anchorage, Alaska, and it's maybe one Black person, when I see protests in Rome, Italy, it's no Blacks. When I see protests in Germany, and you thinking Nazis and you know what I'm saying? It's the movement is more about social inequality more than just a race or a skin tone. You know what I mean? And so I think with that, I think the George Floyd just brought everything to the forefront. Like, everybody's just tired of just not being treated equally. Even in like corporate America, it's still social injustice, because you have people that are just as qualified, whether it's female, male, Hispanic, African American, white, they're not getting the same opportunity as some of the others. And I think that's what this movement is more about. But it's just it's being all put behind Black Lives Matter,
Yeah, and that's a good point. And
just to piggyback on that, it's just to look back at like what Martin Luther King did. And so the civil rights movement, nowadays it's always aligned with, Black people having the right to vote and ending segregation and things like that. But the civil rights movement was also for labored workers in general. And so for people who were in the poorer workforces and everything. So I believe these types of movements are beneficial. I feel terrible that George Floyd had to die and become a martyr for this. But I remember seeing a video clip of his daughter saying, "My dad changed the world." And that always brings me to tears, because he really did. Because again, like you said, yes, it sparked out the movement for Black Lives Matter, but it waterfall into other places, into the LGBT community. Right after that, we went into Gay Pride Month for June, and there was a lot of solidarity between Black lives and the LGBT community. And then we were seeing in like other countries where they were discussing it as well, because a lot of people do want to put racism to just the U.S., but it's a worldwide issue.
Right. And I want to hear from Spencer, because you said that you have some insight and a little bit of knowledge about Black Lives Matter movement. So tell us your perspective on BLM and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I wholeheartedly agree with y'all, man. Black Lives Matter. I'm totally behind that 100%. If there's any instance of racism, like I feel like every single person should be calling that out without exception, 24/7, 365. What Chip was saying though is, there is a movement that's going on, right? But I feel like the movement is separate from the organization. Like if you dig into the Black Lives Matter organization, there's all kinds of corruption going on, and I feel like the movement has been hijacked from really benefiting Black Americans. So let me just give you a few examples. One is the leaders. They call themselves trained Marxists, and I think it's like 3 women, I want to say, but I've seen pictures with them with Nicolas Maduro, who is the Venezuelan president. And as you know, I'm not sure if you know or not, but their country is in horrible shape, where people are like having to kill like cattle to eat, and they're living off of the street and things like that, which is just a result of socialist type government. Mm-hmm. But Black Lives Matter, the organization, is also funded by George Soros. Now, if you're not familiar with George Soros, he basically pretended to be a Christian during the Jewish Holocaust. When he was really a Jew, and he actually joined with the Nazis in putting to death a lot of the Jewish people. And so George Soros, this isn't just the only organization that he funds, but he funds a lot of organizations like Black Lives Matter that kind of help to bring down countries in a lot of ways. For example, he also funds Antifa, which is a mostly radical white left communist organization. And what you'll see them do, just like we saw on TV, is that they'll get funds, they'll get called into a city, a lot of them not even being from the city or living in the city. They'll go there to riot and destroy the businesses, including a lot of Black businesses. And then I even saw a video of a Black Lives Matter, a woman that was a part of Black Lives Matter. She saw a member of Antifa spray painting BLM on a building, and she's like, they're not a part of us. We don't accept that. Like, we don't want them doing that. And so it just goes to show you that there's an agenda behind this organization that does not benefit the Black community, in my opinion. So is that what I've seen? So
is that when you say the organization, because a lot of these riots that was going on was taken from the actual purpose when we were getting in the streets and looking for social justice. A lot of people were just going in to vandalize and rob and steal and to spray paint the walls, different things like that. So are you saying that these people that was doing that are actually not Black Lives Matter, and these are a part of another organization like Antifa? Or are you saying that Black Lives Matter as a...
Yeah, so I would say that some of them were Black Lives Matter, or I don't know if I can say that with 100% confidence, because I think a lot of people just kind of joined along with the group, so to speak, and just kind of participated in all that was going on. But Black Lives Matter serves, I feel like, because it's being funded by George Soros,
it has an organization that is actually...
Oh, I think...
Yeah, can you still hear me?
I can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay.
I think Pat is delayed. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It serves the purpose for what he's trying to accomplish within America. Okay, and so I feel like because George Soros is anti-America, he's willing to use and fund this organization, Black Lives Matter, to divide people and even join up with Antifa to accomplish like the bigger agenda that's kind of hidden from most people. But I can show you, not right now, but I could maybe link to it later. But we know without a doubt that any money, like if you go to the Black Lives Matter website and you click on that blue donate button, all of the money that's donated to Black Lives Matter, the organization, goes to white politicians in the Democrat Party. And Malcolm X, when he was back in the 60s, I'm a big fan of history. One of the things that he mentioned on camera was that he said, "You cannot name me a black leader who has not been sanctioned and funded by white liberals in the Democrat Party." And the whole purpose behind that is to keep the black community poor and in need. And so I have major problems with Black Lives Matter, the organization, for that reason, because I care about the black community and I don't want to see the black community used and manipulated for other agendas. So that's what I would say.
So would you say, Spencer, just listening to, would you say that just it's Black Lives Matter is basically like any other lobbyist group for the highest bidder? You know, I'm going to fund this group for my own agenda, to put my own agenda out. And like you're saying, it sounds like you're saying that they're pitting people against one another for their own agenda, because, you know, anytime there's corruption or there's you know, anytime there's kind of, you know, two people against each other, it's actually in the benefit of another group, you know. So that's why we go to war. When the economy is struggling, you go to war, right? So it's kind of like, so are you saying that the Black Lives Matter movement it was provoked again? Because I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm like, it was in the middle of COVID-19, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, you know, and like George Floyd, you can't plan that. You can't plan that. But you had that kind of erupted everything, and it was like you didn't hear about COVID-19 for about 2 or 3 weeks. Now we're back. It spiked up. You know, so
Right.
my question, I guess, is: are you saying that it's just like any other lobbyist group is basically being funded to pit one American against another America for the benefit of another group?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And if you do the research and you kind of look at some of the things behind the scenes, you can see that that's exactly where that money is going. It's not going to help the community, the black community. It's not going towards those cities to help rebuild like what's been destroyed. So in my mind, I'm like all about Black Lives Matter. Yes, because I'm a Christian, right? We've all been created in the image of God. I even tell my students that too. I love celebrating the difference in their skin color. You know, I tell them it's beautiful. But as far as this organization, like there's no way that I could ever support it with the way that it currently is right now. Not with what I know about where the money is going and also what else they stand for. I don't know if you knew this too, but they've mentioned on their website that they want to destroy the nuclear family. So I don't know if you saw that Rolling Stones magazine cover with the Black Lives Matter. There was I guess a mom and a little child, right? And
Right.
did y'all figure out who was missing from that image?
I didn't see that actually.
I've seen
Okay.
the dad, the black man. You're right.
Father.
The dad. Yeah, the father. And that's they explicitly mention that on their website. So you know, I would love to support it, but that's the thing, it's just so against so much of what I stand for and what I see happening in the black community. And to Shazi's point, you know, about George Floyd and like some of the I mean, I know that racism I think you'd be a fool to say that racism does not exist. We know that it exists, right? But if there's one thing that I would want the black community to know, specifically about killings, like police shootings and things like that, if you look at the crime databases year after year and on multiple different sources, it always shows that white Americans are actually killed more often. Hundreds more are killed at the hands of police officers than our black Americans, including unarmed. So, for example, last year we had there were 9 black unarmed men that were killed and we don't know the race of the police officer, but we just know that there were 9 unarmed killed, and then there were 19 white unarmed men that were killed last year. And then there's hundreds more that are that are killed while being armed, and this happens year after year after year. And so, but because of the media bias, and we'll get into that in the next question, I know, but because of that, because the media is not really telling the full picture, people have this idea, because they focus only on a killing of a white police officer with a black victim. They focus only on that, and so the picture is, whoa, this must be happening everywhere, and this is like rampant. This is unacceptable. Which in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, of course it's unacceptable, but most people don't know like those types of facts, So yes, I mean, I get so disheartened when I see that stuff. I lament all of those things happening, Right. But I also know that for every black man or woman that's killed unjustly, there's also a white person as well.
And Spencer, I want to get to Shazi on this because, like you said, media bias. And Donald Trump recently said, when asked that question, do you feel like Black Lives Matter? And his response was, white people get murdered by the police just as much or more. And then ever since Donald Trump's been in office or started running for office, all I've heard was fake news. This is fake news. So Shazi, give us your point of view on that as far as media bias and when you say, hey, Black Lives Matter, and the response by the president of the United States is, well, hey, more white people get murdered or killed by the police than black people. So can you expound on that?
My first response is, it's really not a competition. At the end of the day, nobody should be dying at the hands of the police. I don't care if you're white, green, alien from Mars, black, whatever. I think I have an overall issue with police brutality in general. Like these cops out here are not trained correctly. They're doing the most, and they should be trained to de-escalate situations. I have a lot of friends in the military who they don't even understand how the cops get to this point, because they're in the middle of war and they're told like, these are the only reasons and ways that you should shoot another person. Like, you try to de-escalate everything you can. And then we go on the news and we see these cops shooting anything that moves, or, oh, I thought it was my taser, or he was giving me back talk, or he started walking, or he was grabbing for his cell phone. I mean, I've definitely seen it. I've seen white people been, handled incorrectly, Hispanics, myself, females. It's across the board. So I'm not giving a pass to the police as a general. Like, I do think though that the way the internet is set up and the way you can find anything, you can find stats to support either side, because that's just how the world is. Like, if I want to look up stats about more black people being killed than white people, I can find it. And if I want to find it the other way, I'm sure I can find it as well. So I guess it does change me into my media. The thing is that's focus on, I think the reason why, there's another issue that's going on here with the police killing black people versus the police killing white people. Again, to me, they are both wrong. I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's the response and the justice from it, because I feel like, I've seen cases where a black cop killed a white person, arrested immediately, fired, put on administrative leave. And then I'm looking at this, like, it took about a week or so for them to even want to arrest George Floyd's murder. So to me, it's like, it's beyond just the number. It's about how it's handled, and that it shouldn't be happening at all, first and foremost. And then two, how do we move forward from here? We're just going to keep giving people passes and like, oh, okay. Like the George Floyd cop had like 17 something previous charges, and he was still allowed to be a police officer. At that point, you think like at some point, like when I'm at my job, you get like 2 warnings, then you're fired. And that's not even for like trying to kill people.
And Shazi and Spencer, I have a question for both of y'all. Breonna Taylor, in her situation, do you feel like if she was of a different color, a Caucasian female, same thing happened to her, police accidentally bust into the house and kill her, Do you think those cops would have been arrested already?
Absolutely. I do. I really, really do. And I know that situation is a little bit different from the rest. Because first of all, I'm trying to understand why cops in general trust into how to start shooting, regardless of what race lived there. Like, just whatever, just went in and decided to shoot somebody in bed 8 times. Like, I don't. But I honestly believe that if she had been white, it would have been a faster response. Like, we're still waiting for some people to be arrested.
You feel the same way, Spencer?
I don't know too many of the facts behind that one, but yeah, I do. I actually agree with Chazi on the police brutality thing. I think it's like horrible that some of these police officers are just coming to light because of the news reporting on it. And then yeah, when you start hearing the facts about it, you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. So yeah, I agree with her, but I also think that because of the mainstream media and the way that they report it, and that's a whole other thing that we can get into, because with the global mainstream media and the people who fund the mainstream media with the agenda behind that, I just think that because of how it's portrayed in the media, people are so quick to label it like a racist thing when the victim is black or the police officer is white. For example, I was, about 15 years ago, I was robbed at gunpoint and pistol whipped over the head. Right. And so the two perpetrators were black, against me. But does that mean that they're racist because I'm white and they're black? Well, no. Right. Because I can't see what's in their heart. And there was nothing that they said to me that would make me think that they were racist, Right. And so I think the quickness that people are willing to go to, it's almost like the media wants to portray it in that way, so that the conclusion that you come to is, oh, this was racist. This was racist.
Well, and then on top of that, it's like, due to the history of the United States, it's already kind of thought of because it's happened before. So it's easy for the media to even say, hey, let's assume this is racist, or some type of backstory to it. So, and a lot of it has to do with just the history of America. And I want to get to a comment by Roycelyn Williams, one of the listeners. She says, I don't think it's just killings people want justice for. It's the system that puts people in jail and charged with far harsher crimes. On top of that, people of color being treated equally is also huge. So that's one of the listeners. Thanks for joining us, Miss Williams. So I want to.
I would say that I completely agree with her too. With Roycelyn. I think if we're gonna have justice, like you have to be able to just. And if you're showing that kind of a bias where certain people of color are being treated a different way, or receiving harsher consequences for something that someone else is doing the same way. But again, I think the thing that's not talked about is that yes, there actually are white people who are experiencing some of those same injustices. That are being accused of things that they didn't do and stuff like that. But I think and so in that sense, I would just say that. But yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's probably happening more to the black community than it is to white individuals. But to say that it's not is just not true. I mean, it still happens.
I don't think anybody.
Also, all I was going to say is because, again, I agree with you, Spencer, because I believe the media. I don't know if y'all remember the star swimmer for Stanford. Not to get off topic.
Yeah,
he was a white guy, and he got caught red-handed raping someone.
Yeah.
Then it was the high school football player that was allegedly sexually assaulting a girl, that it wasn't him, and he was going to be put up for 20 years. Whereas, because the star swimmer, it was the first time, he never did anything wrong. Same thing. He got off on probation. I don't want to quote wrong, but I believe it was a couple of months, right? He got off. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what the media portrays. And so that's what the frustration when we say social inequality is not just, it's not black or white, or it's just, okay, well, this one kid, a promising high school football player, allegedly, and then you have somebody that got caught red-handed. The police got caught doing it, sexually assaulting a woman on campus, and he got out because he's never done anything before. But they both never did anything before. So why should this high school kid have to be put up until it came back where he didn't do it. He wasn't even the one that he was alleged.
And that's the systematic things that the BLM movement is trying to change for the better. And since we're up against time, I got one more question, Shazi and Spencer. But as far as the current situation right now with COVID-19, open up schools. Do you think it's time to open the schools back up, or do you think we need to hold off for a certain period of time until we get this under control? Let's for Shazi.
Here first, but I do want to reply to Spencer real quick on that because the other topic. I don't think anything should ever just be solely focused on one group. I think social justice reform will help everybody across the board, but it does seem to be way leaning towards more Black people having injustices in that system. But to move to the COVID-19, I mean, this is the whole thing I could talk about for like 2 hours, but I won't. The schools opening back up to me is just about as dumb as an idea, as reopening too early like we did and why we're at with these extra cases. I don't even know why they're making decisions on schools at this time. It's July. I mean, I guess maybe some schools start in August or something.
They start in August, late August, but I think they're moving it back to September now.
Okay, because in Pennsylvania, we start after Labor. So I just think it's silly we don't have control over this virus. It has shown it over and over again, across the country, across the world. Even countries that thought they had under control are spiking back up again. We don't have control over it. So why would you want to risk the lives of children and their teachers because maybe the parents don't want to have the kids at the house or something? I just doesn't, in my mind, human lives should always come first over anything else. And I don't understand the need to risk the lives of children and teachers.
Gotcha. And Spencer, you're in education, and I'm not sure if you heard today, but Ben Carson came out and said that if we do another shutdown, we will completely destroy the financial infrastructure. So what are your thoughts on the issues right now with going back and forth, opening up the schools?
Yeah, I hadn't heard that from Dr. Ben Carson, but yeah, that's interesting. So my feeling is that the safety of teachers and students should always be put first, right? But at the same time, if you talk to like pediatricists, how do you say it? Oh my gosh, I'm totally blowing that. But anyways, yeah, they said something like 5 out of 5 say that they should go back to school. I was reading on an article just the other day that some of those testing kits, even without someone having been tested, they're showing positive. And then I read something from the CDC website, and I'll just share with you real quick. It says, okay, so what do your results mean? If you test positive, it says a positive test result shows that you might have antibodies from an infection with the virus that causes COVID-19. However, there is a chance a positive result means that you have antibodies from an infection with a virus from the same family of viruses called coronaviruses, such as the one that causes the common cold. So I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like, okay, so no wonder so many people are getting like a positive test. That doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have it, but man, if that's the case, then how many people have been tested as showing positive when they really don't have it? And so, but what I try to look at is the death rate, and the death rate within the state of Texas. So we have 29 million, about 800,000 people here in Texas. Okay, out of that population, a little over 3,000 have died, which is like a 0.00016, something like that, mortality rate. So that means that 99 or 98 point something percent of people, survive it, which is way better than the flu and other infectious diseases. So yeah, I guess.
So you're for opening up the schools then?
I am, but I'm not. I would say because I'm a conservative, leaning like libertarian, I guess. I wouldn't like necessarily force it on the parents, and that's the decision that our district has decided as well. That we're not going to force parents to send their children to school if they feel like it's unsafe. And so, but yeah, I do want the best for what's kids, but also realize that hey, that all that time at home is really not good for kids. And, coming from a Title I school, our majority population is about 65% Hispanic, about 30-something% Black.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of our kids that depend on those meals. Like we provide free and reduced meals for both breakfast and lunch. And so, I can't say for sure that some of our students are getting those meals at home, and we know that some of them aren't. So that's a real concern for us as well,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, okay, you want to reply? Or?
No, go ahead, Miss Shazi.
Okay. So, I mean, you do bring up valid points. I also heard from somebody else, a dentist actually. She's like, it's probably not good that our kids are staying inside because their immunity to everything else is probably going down, because like kids build immunity by being out in the world, playing in the mud, getting a little dirty, getting around all the germs. And that's what my sister used to be a daycare worker. She was always sick because the kids just cycle colds and stuff and everything. So I understand it from like this isn't the norm for kids, but this is also just not the norm in general for anybody. Like we're still learning about this virus. And I hear a lot of people talk about these numbers, but I'm to the point of like, one death from this is like too much. And I understand people die from the flu as well and other colds like pneumonia and other viruses and issues, bronchitis and pneumonia and things like that. But to me, it's unacceptable to say like a small number of people dying is okay enough, because there might not be much we can do about it, but it should never be, okay, we're willing to risk this many people's lives, or with what our plan is. I understand the stress on the economy and I understand the stress on the students and education and everything. But to me, I just don't ever see anything above human life. And yes, I agree. These tests are all over the place. I had a friend who got tested negative, 2 days later had a fever, tested positive, full-blown COVID. He made it, of course. And it does seem like it does seem that a lot more people are surviving it now versus like in the beginning, it just seems like everyone was dying. Like it's like that. So that is an improvement, but I just don't think it's worth the risk because you just don't know who's going to make it and who isn't. So it's one thing to say, yeah, maybe 3,000 people died per the number of people here in Texas, but what if it was your mom or your kid or your brother or your sister? Then it's really close. Like that 3,000 doesn't matter anymore. It's one person in my family that was risked, So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important. Like we have to find some way to move forward and be kind of normal and still function as a society. But when there's clear things like putting people in small classrooms where they're showing that ventilation is helping spread the virus and things like that, that just seems silly to me. Like, why would that be the solution, I guess?
Right. So unless you have any final thoughts, Lloyd, we're going to wrap it up. And I really do appreciate y'all. You have something, Lloyd?
My final thoughts, I just agree with the last question with both Spencer and Shazzy's. Spencer's point, I believe the option should be hybrid, because I'm going back to grad school myself.
Mm-hmm.
And they give you the hybrid option where, some of it's online if you want to go to class. Because there's nothing like social interaction with, especially kids. The younger you are, it's nothing like it. And I feel bad. Like my child, I have a teenage son that's going to high school, 9th grade. He's missing out. That first day of going to high school where you're just afraid, you're scared, we all have it, right? He's not going to experience it right away, but he's in HISD, so he's going to, eventually have it. But I agree with Shazzy. Nothing should becomes before human life. Nothing should come, like we shouldn't sacrifice. I don't care if it's one person that dies, just to be like, okay, well, that's the greater good. We have to sacrifice one. So that's my last thing. I mean, I love the conversation tonight. This was great, everybody. So enjoy everybody here.
I agree. It was awesome.
Any final words, Spencer?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Anything you want to say, Shazi? Anybody want to follow you anywhere? How do they see what you're doing on Instagram?
Yeah, so you can follow me as Shazie's World, so SHASIE World. That's the name of my blog. That's on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
Okay.
And I think thank you to Spencer, because I've grown a lot in my years of being very open to hearing other people's opinions and their thoughts on it. And I do think it's more beneficial to have these types of conversations than like the arguing and the screaming matches, and just kind of like be open to listening. And if our government did that more often, we'd be a lot better off.
Right.
That's right. Oh my gosh, you're so right.
And my final thought is that that's the whole reason we want everybody to come together, is because some people get so upset they don't even get to hear everything you have to say. And that's what we want to do. We want to hear everything, why you feel this way, why do you view things this way, and then explain the background of it. Because now we get a better understanding of where you're coming from, and you get a better understanding where we're coming from. So that's just a foundation that we have to build, and we can keep building it from there. So I appreciate both of y'all for coming on. This is LAMPBITIOUS. You can find Lloyd and myself, co-founder of LAMP. We'll be on what you can tell them the Instagram and Facebook, Lloyd. You know you're good with that.
Instagram is going to be LAMP CS LLC, and on Facebook it's LAMP Services, and you can find us anywhere. We're Google verified. That's huge, y'all. So you can go on Google, LAMP Services 5013C. We trying to make an impact in the community. So thank everybody.
Thank you. And then this podcast will also be on LAMPBITIOUS, and that's on Instagram at LAMPBITIOUS. So thank you, everybody, and we are signing off.